There we go. Just needed a kick in the pants. All right. Well, we're going to try this. Hopefully the audio and video aren't too badly out of sync. Looks like I'm going to have to investigate that deeper. But until then, we'll have to make do with what we have here. So let's get started. Five, five. Yeah, it's a little fast for me. See if we can find somebody who wants to play a 15-10. Maybe a 10-5. I mean, a 10-5's even kind of fast. I would prefer a 15-10, but how many people do we have online here? 87,000. Might have to acquiesce to the 5-5. I don't want to. Well, let's try a 10-5, see if we can get any hits there. And we are successful against johnypi. Let's modern it up. Let's play g6. I had been playing d5, the Queen's Gambit, pretty exclusively recently. It's good to change it up from time to time. Okay, so there's two, I would say there's three main moves here. Knight f6 right away, makes it a King's Gambit. King's Indian defense, pardon me. d6 is the move I normally play, or you could go even c5 right away. But I'm going to go with d6. It's a dark square strategy, so you either go for e5 or c5 at some point, hitting the white center. Now, in blitz, I normally play knight c6, but I just don't know if I should do that here or not. Yeah, okay, what the heck. We're basically trying to tempt white into conceding that dark square diagonal. All right, that's a clever move. Basically trying to prevent me from playing e5. Obviously, I don't want to lose my queen. Well, I think at some point I'm going to have to address that bishop. I almost wonder if I have to play h6 here. All right, let's go h6 at least once. Rather, let's attack the bishop at least once, what I meant to say. Just to see where white decides to put that bishop. And of course, they want me to play g5. I'm only concerned about light squares would be rather weak. So I might just have to give up on my idea of delaying a knight f6, because normally that's what you want to do in the modern. Otherwise, this turns more into a king's Indian defense. But it's not going to be easy for me to achieve e5, unless I want to investigate wacko moves like queen d7. Okay, now I think don't want to be too dogmatic here. So let's develop a piece. Okay, let's pin the knight. Can be useful whenever we want to strive for e5. Now I probably can play queen d7. Gives me an option to castle queenside. What do you think about queen d7? Does that force me to take on f3? Suppose I could go back. g4, I go bishop to e4. But then that gets a little tricky. Bishop takes knight. My bishop on e7 is, or on e4 is undefended. Yeah, so I think I'll just take on f3 if h3 is played. Okay, first serious thought from our opponent. Okay, probably looking for some queenside expansion. We could strike in the center right away. Let's get our king into safety. So h3, I am willing to relinquish the two bishops. Because I'm thinking I'll have enough counterplay against the center. Okay, now they're inviting me to play bishop to f5, hitting the queen. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I can't do that. e4 comes. That would be rather foolish. So if I go e5, I might be looking to put a rook on the d file. So let's just play rook here. because maybe we can entice them to play d5, and then I don't have to open up the d file. Okay. Yeah, I figured that move was coming. Play a6 so that if they do play b5, well, we've at least taken the c pawn away from the d5 square, which could be useful. Okay, so now is the time, or is now the time to strike. Do I want to take that first and then go e5? Play rook here, kind of put those ideas in mind. I want to take right, or do I want to push right away? I could push right away, and then what do I do here? Here. Yeah, I could just get a massive exchanges there. Might be okay though. Yeah, I don't really like the 10-5 time control for streaming. I gotta play really quick. So I really can't analyze too deeply here. Okay, so I have a choice here. If I take there, I'm kind of inviting the tempo on the queen, so maybe I can just take with the rook. And yeah, okay, I don't have a pawn that's influencing the d4 square, but I have an open diagonal for my dark squared bishop. Take here, maybe I can play that. Okay, I figured that was coming because they want to get knight d5 in here to hit the bishop, I suspect. So they might be thinking takes, knight d5, bishop g7. They could take here, but I think I can play rook here. And the problem is they can't go back to d5 with a knight because then I could take it because the rook is on the queen. I suppose I could pre-move that. Maybe they're thinking knight takes c7 is possible here. But the idea being if I take here, they could take here, but of course I'm not forced to take the knight. Like rook c8, get another piece into the game. And I've got a slight lead in development there because White's rooks haven't left their home squares. I mean, yeah, okay, this rook is because of castling, but it's not really active on f1. Okay, that's a good move. Yep, get off this diagonal. Makes a lot of sense. Good move from our opponent. Now the question is, do I want to take on e2 or do I want to try to keep the bishop? Yeah, probably just bishop to d3 there. So let's keep it simple. And it'd be nice to play c6, but knight b6 is a forkerini. So we don't want to get forked. The only thing is if I bring this here, I'm taking away that escape square from my rook, so I gotta be careful. But I suppose a move like f4 seems to be rather weakening though. I might be okay there. So now I can look at playing c6, because that's no longer a fork. Okay, so is anybody better in this position? Not sure. I think both sides have things to be happy about. I mean, this knight is very strong for white. And if I do play a move like c6, well, then the d6 pawn could be a target down the road. In terms of black's trumps in the position, well, I mean, we've got a real nice bishop, and both our rooks are very active. We have a slight lead in development. Okay, yeah, I was wondering if that move was going to appear at one point, so that's a very good move. Now I can't, well, I mean, I could take, but it would be a bad idea. Because knight f6 check, I take the knight, and then they take my queen. So we don't want to do that. But I was wondering if I could play this move first, and then I could play the takes. Not seeing anything that says I shouldn't. Because now I'm threatening to just take the knight. So white's got to be careful here. I might be going up a pawn. It's a nice idea in theory, but I think if I were white, rather than trying to get into something dynamic there without having all your pieces involved, it could be risky, especially if you don't have anything concrete. So I think I would have tried to get the F rook involved first, but okay. Well, I could play b5, get that in for free because they couldn't take. I think there's some merit there. Because they have to have the queen in communication with that knight. So I've got two attackers. So either queen b3 or queen a2, I believe, and then I should be able to just grab that pawn. Okay. A move like this is kind of cute. But does it actually really do much? Don't think so. All right, so let's take. Now I could take right away. Is there any reason not to? Not really seeing it. I do like this idea though. And the idea of maybe rook e5 adding more pressure. Of course, if I go rook g5, this might be an instance where f4 is good for white. So maybe I'll just take the pawn. Yeah, let's take the pawn. Now they could play rook c1 with the idea of taking on c7, but of course moving the rook removes a defender of the knight. Yeah, so moving the knight there makes sense. Attacking the a pawn. So if I play here, is the idea to play rook c1? That might be the idea. Maybe I'll just go here. Just to get off that not diagonal, the file. And more importantly, I can get my c-pawn rolling. I could go knight d5, but then I just go queen d6. Bishop f8 might be a good move. Looking at the knight and the a3 pawn, perhaps. Okay. Yeah, I gotta be careful though. Time pressure and knights. Hey, Sachin, was rook e3 an option in previous moves? Yeah, we'll take a look after the game. Maybe I missed something. d8, I'm thinking bishop to f6. Yeah. It's going to be hard to keep that knight. Knight here, bishop f6. Fortunately, my rook covers that square. So after bishop f6, I'm not sure what they're doing here. Yeah, it looks like black is just winning a piece here. Sachin has suggested a rook to e3 earlier. So at what point here? Oh, maybe even here. Oh. Aha. Yes, indeed. That looks strong, doesn't it? So here. Okay, engine doesn't like it, so there must be. Okay, the problem is there's a check coming. No, that's not the problem. Well, let's see. Let's see. So maybe it's a matter of you get 2 rooks for the queen. Maybe this is going to turn out okay for black. So we block the check, and we have a check of our own. And let's see, what's the score? 3 pawns up. So queen versus 2 rooks. Knight versus bishop, and I've got 6 pawns. White has 3. But it looks like there was something here for white. Because it's giving a score of +4. Maybe it's just a matter of taking, and then you have the 2 rooks. What happens here? Is that perhaps... This looks pretty good for black. So there must be a move. Queen d5 is the suggestion. Right. Because it's the queen that is going to deliver the check to the white king. So white is saying, okay, move that rook and I'm going to just take your queen. Because at this point, white is up a full rook. So yes, that does seem to be the refutation. So rook takes e3 right away, wasn't working. Is there any rook takes e3 here? I don't think so. I don't think it's working. Now, my opponent played queen d5. I was actually expecting queen to c6. I know you're not supposed to trade when you're down, but given that we're both in time pressure, it's generally not a bad idea to simplify the position. Again, I'll reiterate, my opponent has been playing without the f1 rook, so I think that's why their move earlier in the game, c5, was a little too premature. Get all your pieces involved before you lash out. Okay, let's get back in there. So that was a 10-5 game. See if we can find a 15-10. and we are successful this time. So let's start with e4. Now we could go open Sicilian. We could go close Sicilian. All right, I'm feeling like an open Sicilian. See what our opponent has in mind. Najdorf or... Okay, the Najdorf, yeah. So I've been playing the Fischer-Sozin a lot. That's one possibility. I've played g3 as well. I even think f3 is a move here, but one move that at least the last couple of years has been h3. The idea being that we want to play g4. So I'm going to give this one a try. Okay, e5. So where do I go with the knight? Knight f3 certainly makes a lot of sense. Knight e2 is not such a bad idea because, you know, maybe I can go over here at some point and look at those two squares. The only thing I don't like about knight e2 is it does block in my bishop. Temporarily, anyway. So I think I'm just going to go knight to f3. Knight b3 is also a fine candidate move. Okay, normally black plays h5 whenever white goes h3. So the fact that black hasn't done that, I think I would be remiss if I didn't play g4, because after all, that's one of the main ideas behind h3 is to play g4. Okay, so we've enticed h6. So we could kind of play this like a Keras attack. Try to open up the G line. I mean, I suppose I could play g5 right away. Could also go with fianchetto the bishop and castle. Lots of options here. I don't know if I like doing that. Maybe it's okay. I don't know. I could try for the slow build. But of course, if I do that, whoops. The minute I play h4, g-pawn is loose. I like the idea of just bishop to g2, because it does kind of keep an eye on that diagonal. And I could just castle kingside. So let's go with bishop to g2. I do think g5 was a serious alternative there. All right, so now what's black going to do? I mean, b5 certainly makes sense. Maybe putting the bishop on to b7. And also, b4 is also in the offing. Bishop to e6 also makes a lot of sense. Don't know if I want to commit to castling just yet. We go a4 to kind of deter b5. Yeah, it might be useful. Let's throw in a4. It's generally not a bad move for white in the open Sicilian. Kind of playing a game of cat and mouse though when it comes to king safety, because kind of want to see where black wants to put their king before I decide to commit my king to one of the sides. So maybe just bishop to e3 here. Keep our options open. Okay, well now black is not going to castle queenside, so I think it's safe to just go kingside. Sachin says for some reason I like black here. Yeah, I think black's position is very logical. Certainly white's position is not that typical of the open Sicilian, I'd say. The white side anyway. Black's move looked more standard. Okay, if I go queen d2, well then I think knight a5 is rather annoying. So then they're looking at knight c4. And I really don't want to play b3 because that loosens up the knight. There's always some sacrificial ideas, and then knight takes e4. So maybe I should try to get f4 in. One way would be to play g5, the idea being that takes, and then I'm ready to continue with f4. I think that makes sense. Don't see anything wrong with that. So let's go g5. And it's possible I can make use of the open g file at some point in the future. Probably will have to go king h2 just to add protection to the h3 pawn. Okay, so my thinking was to take back with the knight. Keeps an eye on that. Also, it happens to guard that h-pawn. And more importantly, it does free up my f-pawn. I don't think I'll take that bishop right away. I don't think black has to worry about me taking that because, yeah, it does double up the pawns, but Double pawns are not always a bad thing. In this instance, I think having a pawn on e6 is good, because it takes away those two squares from white. If there's a pawn on e6, well then I'm not going to be able to play knight to d5 that easily. Okay, knight to b4. Kind of a pesky move. My queen's the only one covering the c2 pawn. So it's not like I can easily move my queen out of there. f4 certainly seems logical. Well, let's continue with the plan. Continue with the plan, Stan. Another nice idea of playing f4 is that I've grabbed some more space such that now my rook has access to these two squares. Rook f2 in particular could be a very useful move to keep an eye on the c2 pawn. Now if they take, I don't want to take this way because queen b6 comes with a check. So they basically get a free move there. That helps their development. So if they take the pawn, I'm going to take with a rook. Because I might want to put the bishop on d4 anyway. Might be useful to have the bishop on that diagonal. So that's only if they take. I don't think they're forced to take, though. Optically, it looks like after f5, things are getting a little hairy for black, but they've always got bishop to here, hitting the rook. Although now that I say that, yeah, maybe they can wiggle it with tactics. After rook f2, the bishop on c4 doesn't really have a... Well, it doesn't have any safe squares at the moment. But I'm thinking they could get away with d5. Because after d5, you're threatening d4, forking knight and bishop. That's definitely a path that the game could have taken for sure. Okay, so now... Okay, yep. I thought that might be an idea. So we can kick the knight. It's only if we want to. It'd be nice to get the queen here and then, you know, or even rook h4, queen h5, but got to be able to do that without losing time. So I'm thinking after e5, the logical move would be knight d7, attacking the e pawn and also putting the question to the knight. Maybe what I can do is I could play here, here, takes, queen g4, keeping an eye on the e6 pawn. Ah, when I play e5, it also uncovers this, though. So maybe I can take advantage of the fact that the bishop is overworked here. Kind of combine that with queen h5 ideas. So let's go here, here. What if I take here? The idea being if they take here, then I got queen h5 coming in. It's a big booming check. So I think the first move is e5. Pose the question, what are you going to do with the knight? Yeah. Okay, so now I was wondering about this move. So most likely they'd play bishop takes here. Yeah. That seems to be all she wrote. Could play just knight f3, holding on to the pawn. Feels a little slow, though. Okay, let's see. Here, here, queen here, knight here. Check, king over. Thing is, my bishop and my rook are en prise, as they call it. Okay, this could get quite tactical. Considering taking here, 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 queen e7. Then I was wondering about bishop takes here. Knight here. Looks very interesting. I don't know if it's sound. But we're going to give it a try. Try going to use my active pieces. Queen e7. Could just play bishop here. Maybe they throw a check in. Then they could play queen e8. I'm also looking at some other sacrifices, like on d5. Queen e7, bishop takes. Takes. I could take here, but then I've got bishop to d4. The idea being that they can't take the knight because of queen takes g7. Of course, not all of that is forced. So they don't have to take my bishop on d5. What happens if they just take here? I play a check. Well, if they move the king, then it's going to be checkmate, so rook here. I take. That actually looks rather promising. Here, king here. Now I'm wondering actually if I can get away with rook f1. This definitely is the type of line that you like to play if you like attacking chess. Was it good to play queen g4 rather than a knight? Was it good to play queen g4 rather than rook b4? Yeah, that's a good question. We'll take a look after the game. So I've given up material, but I'm doing that for gain of time, which is a dynamic element in chess, which is not easily learned or taken advantage of, actually. The very definition of it being dynamic means that it doesn't stay forever. You have to take advantage of your opportunities. Now, I'm just noticing if I take here, maybe just a simple knight here. But even in that case, the pawns are... I'm down a pawn. Sorry, I'm up a pawn, but down the exchange. That might be worthwhile. And I suppose after knight here, maybe there's like some bishop here stuff. Now, knight here takes here, rook here rather. Maybe it's just a matter of e6. That looks rather crushing. So knight takes here. What's the defense? Because if they move the king here, it's just going to be mate. So what's the defense to... I don't see the defense here. Because knight here, yes, attacks my queen, but I take their queen with check. Yeah, I think that's just crushing here. Unless I miscalculated, which of course is always a possibility. Now, the thing is, the knight, if the knight moves, I can take that rook. So it's kind of tempting to goad him to play knight takes e5. So I might even just get my other rook involved. But is that just getting a little too fancy? Oh, geez. I think I could just move here. Yeah, this looks crushing, I think. Unless I've miscalculated, but I'm not seeing it. The thing is, I take here with check, and if they decide to let me take the knight, I'm taking here with check. This seems now so winning, says Sachin. Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. The power of the dynamic play, because my whole operation was to divert the bishop, and I attacked with speed. So I played queen g4, hitting the bishop and the pawn. And I sacked another piece, attacked queen and bishop. So I'm making moves, and it's just attack, 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 attack. So you don't want to allow your opponent one move even to consolidate, because after all, I am down material. I gave up a rook for a knight. So my argument is I'm either going to recoup the material or okay, tricky, tricky. Okay. So they saw a move ahead of us. Because the problem is my bishop. Okay, so that may not have been accurate. Okay, so maybe I flubbed this. Don't know though, it still looks pretty good. I mean, I could take here, check, king here, and the thing is, this rook is attacked, this rook is attacked, the bishop is attacked. I was thinking something's got to give there. Of course, I could do it this way too. Here, here, here. Don't know. Okay, let's go with this one. And if I turn out that I flubbed this, well, then I flubbed it. But I'm going to pick up at least another piece, because like I said, all three of these pieces are threatened to be attacked here. Now, if rook here, whoops, if rook here, queen check, queen back. Here we go, takes, takes. Oh, that wouldn't be good because of rook f1. So rook here, here, queen here, here. They'd have to take with the king, I believe. Then I could play check, king back. I think I can just go into a winning king and pawn endgame there. Yeah, I think I'm just going to be up a pawn in the endgame, which will be more than enough to win. I wonder if maybe king here is the best move. Take here. I don't know if the king's going to survive that. Now, if they take the pawn, I take the rook and I'm up a bishop. They go here, I play rook f1 check, and then I'm taking the rook. And yeah, so they resign. A little early to resign, because I could still goof up here, but I certainly understand the resignation. The idea is that, my idea anyway, was king back here, and I trade everything. This is what I had seen, and that's all you need is one pawn. I'm up one pawn in king and pawn endgame. I'll be able to convert that, and as you see, the evaluation is +4. So, okay. So let's just quickly look here. Okay, engine didn't really care about my bishop to g2. Thought bishop e3 was best, which I suppose it gives me the flexibility. I don't have to commit my bishop just yet. The other move that I was considering was g5. And I don't know, I'm always hesitant to play such committal moves. It could have been similar to the game, actually, in a way, because I did manage to play g5. Okay, engine says it's minus 0.3. That's close to equals, I guess, whatever minus 0.3 means. Anyway, let's get to the exciting part. So did I have to play a4? Okay, knight h2, knight d2 are two moves that it's considering. Even knight g1, wow, that's a... Can you imagine playing knight g1 in this position? Knight g1 with the idea to go to e2, wow. I like my a4. I think my a4 move seems much more natural. Okay. So yeah, position here, I mean, minus 0.3. It's fairly even, I would say. And my g5 move is not the move that the engine wants to play. It gives knight to d5, queen to d2, or queen to e2. Those are the three top moves. But let's see why it doesn't like g5. So takes, takes. Okay, it doesn't mind that move by black, but the engine just says simply, let's move the bishop back. I mean, my intention was to play f4, so what happens if I just continue with the plan? Well, I guess f4 right away does relinquish the e5 square. I would tend to agree here that I think this position has gone into black's favor here. That knight is very strong. Some possible knight c4 stuff coming. So what if I don't play f4 right away? So queen to d2. The idea that, you know, maybe I get my queen's rook into the game. The only thing about queen to d2, I'm always having to be conscious of knight a4 with the idea to come in here. Now in this instance, I might be able to get away with a move like b3. Because as before, when I had mentioned this during the game, it was only the knight that was defending in the e-pawn. But in this position, I've got both the knight and the bishop. So I don't have to be as concerned with possible sacrifices followed by knight takes here. Still does leave a vulnerable knight and pawn on c2. So engine is saying queen to c7, and then knight to a2, and I keep the balance. The idea being that my queen is hitting the black knight, so black does not have time to grab the pawn. So after rook f to e8, engine is saying just simply knight here. Queen here, here, takes and takes, I guess. And it says this is fairly equals. Yeah, I mean, makes sense to me. Doesn't seem like any side in particular has anything going. But anyway, let's go to the game because it got really tactical. So knight b4, I thought was okay. So I guess in this instance with f4, black is not getting the knight onto e5. So that's one downside of knight to b4. Still, the engine likes black here. So my opponent played d5, and yeah, I think that is when things started to turn. That wasn't necessary. So what would I have done on a move like knight to d7? I probably have to commit to taking the bishop here. I can't play this move because my knight is hanging. So I probably have to look at something like this. And if I go queen here, yeah, this is, I'd analyzed something similar during the game. Like, I think black could even just give up that e-pawn because of this move. Because the rook and the bishop are both attacked here. So check, king over, and I'm going to lose one of these guys because I don't even have rook e1. I can't even give up the exchange. Because normally I'd be able to just protect my bishop and at least get something for it. But in this position, the knight would simply take. And unfortunately for me, the h4 square is covered. Otherwise, I'd have the simple rook here for a nice checkmate. So queen g4 is not really doing much there. And it does look like I might just have to simplify the position. After which, Engine likes black. So despite the fact that white is the one with the two bishops, black is for choice. I suppose that's making sense to me now because this knight is going to go on e5. And I'm either going to have to give up my dark squared bishop for it, or, I mean, that knight is going to be just as powerful as any of the bishops. Looking at this square, for example. So very interesting. So I guess on the benefit of hindsight, maybe the whole idea behind f4 was just the wrong plan. And in fact, Engine wants me to play a5. Okay. Well, for example, I could play bishop to b6, secure the bishop there. And one benefit of a5 is I could develop my rook this way. And I mean, you never know, I could go knight here. a5 certainly makes sense. Okay. Anyway, let's get to the real juicy part of the game, where it got really tactical. Okay. Interesting. It wants me to play rook takes b4 here, which I did consider during the game. I looked at this. Okay, it simply just wants me to play queen to d2. And after rook c4, that's not an easy move to see. Oh, okay, I guess the idea is that I can't take because d4, and we have a nasty fork. So I didn't quite care for my knight takes e6. In fact, it's saying -1 for black. So there must have been a refutation to my rook takes b4 here that neither of us saw. Because in this position, it's -1.3. So I followed up with active play. I suspect the right move is something like either queen e7 or, no, not queen e7, but queen to e8. Yeah, queen e7 turned out to be, I think, the losing move. Yeah, because then I've got this sacrifice. Because I'm taking here, and I'm hitting the queen at the same time. So now during the game, I was curious, what happens here? It's going to go here, king over. And I mean, I could simply just take the bishop back. Is this what I looked at during the game? Hold on now. I thought I had looked at something. Whoops, apologies. What was it during the game that I looked at? Hmm. It seems after king h8, and then I simply take. Looks like black is just going to be up material here. Bishop d4. Ah, queen e7. Very clever move. Don't want to trade queens. Okay, Engine is saying minus 1.6, and you know, I'm sure if I was playing this against any grandmaster, they would win every time. But I think, you know, with the two bishops and both kings rather vulnerable, you know, might still be some opportunities here. But now that I'm playing this further, I might have to give up the queen. Because if I don't, I just got too many pieces, I think. I'm the one with the worst king. Still very dynamic position. Sachin says, was it good to play queen g4 instead of rook b4? Okay, well, let's take a look here. So in this position during the game, I took here. And yeah, maybe, okay, I think this might have been what I looked at in the game too. And there was something I didn't quite. Yeah, I think in this position, this is when I looked at this kind of stuff. And I realized I was losing both, well, not both, but one of these guys. The rook on a1 or the bishop on e3. Engine says I can get rid of those two. There's only one move it gives. Of course, you know, it's one thing to see this stuff when time is not a factor. But during the game, I think I had declined this idea because once I saw that rook h4 was not possible, I thought I was simply going to lose some material. Rook h4, of course, not possible because the bishop is holding it. And if I go for something like this, maybe even knight takes f8 is a move here, because now I've got three pieces that are attacked. And I don't even have a check with the queen. And Engine is saying knight takes d5. Looks like the only way to maintain an advantage. So I guess the idea is if knight takes... Ah, because of tactics. Okay, we take here. And then rook takes. It looks like we're just down a rook, but no, we've got knight check. And then knight takes here. So apparently with best play, this is equals, which is wild. Certainly would feel much better playing white here. So it looks like knight takes d5 would have been okay here. So yes, it does look like queen g4 is the better try. In fact, it prefers queen g4 over my move, I believe. Yeah. Didn't like my rook takes here. So queen g4, it's saying rook takes, bishop takes. Ah, see, I don't have time to play queen takes pawn check because then they can block with the rook. Okay, so I'd have to take. Now they're saying knight to f8 just to hold on to this pawn. And what's the score here? Okay, the materials, piece material is equal, and as are the number of pawns. So it's actually minus 0.6. So slightly better for black according to the engine. Hello, Raul, how are you? You'd like to play a rapid? Sure, what's your username on Lichess? It's amazing that even, optically on this position, engine still prefers black. I mean, I look at this and say, well, I've got the two bishops. I've got a nice clamping pawn that's taking away some important defensive points in black's position. Actually, what happens if I go bishop here first? Threatening the mate. Okay, now there's first a check, and then queen e7. Okay, or even rook c7. Yeah, rook c7 makes more sense. Interesting. Okay, Raul wants to play. You challenged me 15-3 casual. Okay, just hold 1 second. I have to run to the washroom real quick. So I will be back, and then I will gladly play you a game. So let's leave it here on Lichess TV, and I will be right back, folks. So Okay, and we're back. Hey, Moscatel. Long time no see. How have you been? All right, let's see if Rule is still there. Hopefully they are. And good luck to Raul. Ah, we got the birds opening. Not a opening recommended to beginners. It's a fun opening though. Simon Williams, the Ginger GM, plays it on his stream. Some real attacking games going. Anyway, I'll stop babbling here. I always liked Fianchetto. You spent the last 3 weeks going down to the candidates. Oh yeah, that's right. It was in Toronto, wasn't it? You got yourself a picture with Anon and met Alexandra Kostenyuk. Nice. Yeah, I always like fianchettoing anytime opponent has a pawn on f4, either in, say, the birds like this opening or the closed Sicilian. I could play very Sicilian-esque and go like d6, c5. Could go d5, establish a pawn in the center. The only thing about d5 is it does allow, well, essentially gives white what they want. That e5 square for the knight. I don't think I'm going to commit just yet. So let's play c5 and keep our options open. c5, we are looking at the d4 square. And we're not going to castle just yet. It can be useful to be patient with castling. Just depending on how the game goes, you may decide to castle one side over the other. Whereas if you castle early, you've taken away that possibility. As a general rule of thumb, though, if you can castle within the first 6 to 8 moves, you're doing well. It's a good general rule of thumb to go by. Okay, so we've got a challenge here from Raul, one of our viewers that wanted to play a game, so here we are. Thank you, Raul, for following, and so is Lucas War, who unfortunately I missed And they followed me an hour ago, so thank you both. Are you recording this for YouTube? Asks Sachin. Yeah, I will put it up on YouTube. I have been slack in my updates. I didn't put last week's video on YouTube yet, so yes, I will get that. I'll get both of those up before next week's show before next week's stream. I mean, I don't know if this is enough to call a show, but you guys know what I mean. Okay, so white castled kingside. I think I'll do the same now. I could delay it another move, but let's get on with it. I might just want to go d6 here because, yeah, okay. Rahul knows how to play the position here. So the queen is coming in here, and you can get a real nasty attack as white. So I do need to be careful. Do need to be careful. Like a reverse Dutch, says Sasha. Yes, absolutely. It's basically a Dutch with one tempo ahead because you're playing white. So it can be a rather threatening attack because, you know, white has all these ideas. General rule of thumb, though, is to confront a wing attack with play in the center. So I'm looking at both d5 and d6, trying to figure out which is the better way. Okay, I'm going to go with d5. I think that makes sense. So I can always play d4. And, you know, maybe get my queen here if I have to swing over here for defensive purposes. Okay, well, it looks like the dog wants to go out. So I gotta take another quick break, folks. I'm stepping out just to take her out. Be right back. see. There we go. All right, we're back. And looks like Rahul is in the tank. Trying to come up with a plan. Well, it's good whenever I see opponents take their time whenever a critical position occurs. Moscatel says, and here I was thinking the dog wants to go out was a new chess term I never heard of. Yes. It's a variation of the woof defense. Okay, so White has to figure out how they are going to get these two guys into the game. Now, I'm no Dutch expert. As Sashin in the chat said earlier, this is a reverse Dutch. The Dutch defense is played by Black, but White, in effect, has played the opening exactly like a Dutch. The only difference is that they play the first move. So in the Dutch, I know the classical White tends to go for, I know D3. I'm not sure if they go for E4 break. Yeah, I think that's what they tend to go for. And that's one way to try to get this bishop into play. It might be possible, but I don't know if I'm so concerned about the bishop being there. Of course, I've always got these pesky ideas. Attacking the c2 pawn and the queen and the rook are under threat. So White always has to keep that threat in mind. But I think if I was White here, a d3 makes the most sense to me. I mean, I suppose queen h4 right away is playable. Don't see an immediate refutation to that move. Anyway, we'll see what Rahul comes up with. I'm in the middle of a game and I get a challenge. Well, I only play one game at a time. Okay, a3. I don't like a3. I don't think it's necessary. I understand the move. It does have a purpose. It does permanently prevent me from plopping my knight there. But I think there was that wasn't such a big threat. Because if need be, if I were to put the knight on to b4, White always has the option to go bishop to d1, putting the bishop in defense mode. And I mean, the bishop isn't really that great on e2 to begin with, so putting it on d1 is not a real big concession. So these small pawn moves, especially rook pawn moves, you really want to think twice about whether or not you have to make them. And I know it may seem like a small thing, but chess is all about small things building up. And whenever you make small inaccuracies over time, they build up and you have a disadvantage. So by itself, a3 is not a losing move by any means of the imagination, but you just want to be careful when you make moves that you don't have to make, because you're taking away an opportunity to have made another move, right? So sometimes in chess, that's all it takes is one move too short. Um, for example, there's many times when you said, "Oh, if I only had a chance to make two moves in a row," well, there you go. It's a hard thing to appreciate, the minutiae of chess. Okay, so I expanded on the in the center. I don't really want to take right away because I mean that kind of helps my opponent out. I mean, I could strive for an e5 break. I don't want to do that right away because, well, I say that. Maybe I do want to do that right away. No, I think I can prepare it. It's a matter of if I want to play rook e8. I'm a little hesitant to move the rook there though, because if I'm going to play e5, well, the f file is going to open, and so it's useful to keep this rook here to protect the f7 square. I suppose I could always just go back if need be. Okay, let's do that. Simply expand in the center. The other thing about taking here is I take away a pawn in the center for me, and I'm helping out my opponent. So don't help out your opponent unnecessarily. Okay, I just got a text from I believe my wife. Just bear with me here. Okay. D3. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Now the question is, do I want to play this first? Is there any merit to taking? Because now the situation is a little different in that white has the opportunity to expand in the center. So I know in the previous move I said I don't want to help my opponent out, but I got to judge that as to whether or not I prefer that structure over this structure. Okay, I'm going to develop my bishop. Hello, roller coaster. Good to see you again. Okay, that's the move that I'm expecting. Yep. And the pawn storm is common in these lines. The question is, do I want to take this right away? Or do I want to kind of keep the tension? Now here I don't know if I want to play e5. Because again, I'm helping out my opponent. I just want to play e6. Just to keep guard on that square. I could take here though. The only thing that I'm concerned about is that they might have me exchange bishop for that bishop, and the light squared bishop is not really good. But if I take the knight, and with the rook and the bishop both being able to take, kind of helps out the situation. I suppose if I can keep that bishop locked behind the pawns, might be to my advantage. Yeah, I'm not sure though. I'm going to just keep the tension. Yeah, I didn't follow the candidates all that closely, so I'll have to check out some of the games. I'll be sure to check out that game that you refer to, Muscatel, Round 4 by Pragnananda. Okay, yeah, I was expecting that, so now I have to do something with that. Thought I felt a sneeze coming on. Okay. So earlier, the thing I didn't like about e5 earlier is that, yeah, if they take, I can plot my knight here, and that bishop is going to be blocked by the pawn. But the thing is, if I play e5, they don't have to play takes on e5. They could play f5 themselves, which with g4 coming, that's your typical pawn storm. So I don't think I should be going for that. Play rook c8. Get off of this line of fire. And maybe I can open things up on the queen side here. I like the way Rahul is playing this, though. This is one of the things about the birds opening. White often gets kingside play, I mean, granted, only if black castle's kingside. It's not always the easiest thing to play against as black. Okay, so I think expanding on the queen side makes sense here, unless I'm missing something. Prague beat the Vidit in round 4 with a super rare line and the Rui. Okay. I'll be sure to check that one out. Yep, so grabbing more space, so white's attack here is 100% logical. Bring the knight back. So as black here, I'm arguing that, yeah, white has more space, but the two bishops is not an advantage for white because the nature of the position is closed. Now, of course, white may change that, try to open things up. H5 is a real possible move here. Risky though, because lots of sacrifices on H6. So I wonder, or sorry, H5. So I'm wondering about simple H6. Yeah, I think I want to get my own stuff going here. So, in the interest of time, let's expand on the queen side. Now, I don't think I want to take that. Let's go here. Add some more pressure to d-pawn. And yeah, well, I could grab more space, but I'm going to put my bishop on h8. Now, is there any benefit to me doing this? Problem is, it's helping white more than anything. We're playing 15-3, so I'm going to have to speed things up here. Ah, I should have taken on d3. I don't know why I didn't just take that. Let's do it now. Yeah, unfortunately, this just turned out to be a blitz game at the very end. All right, thanks, Rahul. I don't know if there's really much sense in analyzing the end there because we were both in such severe time pressure. I suspect things are okay here for white. Yeah, engine really likes white here. And that's not surprising because of the space advantage. Interesting. So instead of knight to e7, engine wants me to go knight to a5. Yeah, see, that's a move that wasn't on my radar. And the idea is that I'm threatening to take here, followed by knight c3, knight b3, pardon me. So lots of inaccuracies here at the end. So I'm just trying to get my active pieces here. And I was really surprised that this move was played. Now, I played queen b3. I said during the game, like, why didn't I take on d3? I mean, of course, I should just take the pawn. But generally, when you're in time pressure, you want to simplify the position. So irrespective of what the objective evaluation is, I think white should have exchanged queens here. And engine prefers white, and I suspect it's just because my dark squared bishop might be problematic. You know, for example, with h6 here, yes, I could get the dark squared bishop out later in the game, but now I've always got to be concerned about my king being mated. Can I take a rough guess on your FIDE? Probably not, just from that one game. Honestly, I don't think. I think a longer time control would have given me a better sense of your strength, but yeah, very interesting game. This is why I think the bird's opening. You got to be really careful as black, as you can see the evaluation swung very quickly in white's favor. Now, interesting. Why didn't I do it this way during the game? Even this would have been more accurate because now I have both of these moves. And I could play knight b3. And once I can grab that dark squared bishop, I should be more than fine. Because now I don't have to worry about f5 and this bishop coming into like a mating attack. Can we play a longer game? Not today, but definitely check out the following Saturday. I'd be more than willing to play a longer game. My streaming schedule is now every Saturday at 8:30 Eastern. So, but thank you for the game. And no, I'm not going to play Blitz. I don't tend to play Blitz on stream. So I'm going to look to see if we can find another rapid game, and we do. And probably going to be the last game for me. 4 tends to be my limit. Now, I normally play the London, which is kind of boring to a lot of people. But I like positional chess. Okay, so with c6, queen b6, and putting pressure on b2 is the idea. I just got to remember the theory. Okay, so I'm going to play knight c3. Okay, so this is the Jobava London, whenever you play knight c3 in front of the pawn. Play play e3 to kind of discourage knight h5 stuff, and that's why I'm looking at bishop to e2 again, discouraging knight to h5. Try to keep this bishop as long as we can. All right, Ginger GM approved, h4. Basically, we're inviting black to play h5 or h6. I don't think black wants to allow white to open things up here, so most people play h5. Optically, I don't see anything wrong with h6 at the moment. And lo and behold, we're going to find out what our opponent has in mind. Okay, let's get the knight out. The thing that I like about h4 is, yeah, okay, if black allows it, you can get this kingside attacking possibilities. But more importantly, it allows me to bring the bishop back if it is ever attacked. And my dog approves. Hey, Italian Machine, long time no see. How are you? You see the scandal he participated in recently? His career is open. I did hear about that. Something about the pension funds. And I noticed that he didn't stream after that story was out for, geez, I want to say at least 6 months or so. And I've noticed in the last month and a bit that he's been streaming again. So I'm not actually sure where things are at in that story. If he's been sued or has had to go to court. But I had the same sense as you that it wasn't going to be good career-wise for Mr. Ginger GM, which is rather unfortunate because he comes across as a real nice guy. So hopefully it doesn't derail him and he's able to come out of this with some integrity, still intact, but I guess we'll see. All right, so enough of my babbling. Knight d3 I sometimes play just to keep pieces. It's kind of funny. I moved my knight around, but am I really concerned about knight takes? I suppose at the very worst, trade the bishops off, but I like the idea of keeping some of the pieces on. I'm going to try this. I think I've played this in a previous game, so. Hey, Moscatel, you heading out? Well, thanks for popping in if that's the case. It's good to see you again. Dog's giving me the stink eye as if to say it's time for lunch. Okay, that move. I'm wondering if f3 makes any sense here. Yeah, they could screw up my pawn structure. Maybe that wouldn't be so good to encourage, because after knight b6, c4 is forever in black's interest. I really don't like taking, though, because after takes here, it feels rather stupid to go back to e5. Yeah, maybe knight d3. I think confusing the game that I played. I think in the game that I had played knight d3 earlier, I already had f3 in, and therefore knight e4 wasn't available as a move. Knight a4 might be a little risky. Queen a4 check, c3. I suppose looking at the c5 square. Maybe the idea is to go knight a4, give myself a chance to kick the knight, and then I could always bring it back. It's kind of the pipe dream. And what happens on like b5? All the trades, and then bishop is taking here. Oh, I'd have to sec here. Here. Take. I'd have to take this way. Yeah, I think I'm just going to beat down a pawn there. Maybe I am going to have to allow them to, unless I got, I'm going to consider something really wild, knight b1. Undevelop. I mean, that might be good for the computer, but I can't imagine that being a good move. Maybe I just grin and bear it and play here, takes, queen a5, queen d2, knight b6 looking at c4 square. Maybe I have to play a move like bishop to c7 to pin. Yeah, I don't really care for it, but I'm going to have to suck it up, as they say. I mean, it might actually be useful for me to sacrifice that pawn too. A5, I could simply castle, just allow them to take it. Okay, that's a good move. They want me to take here to open things up, so we're not gonna do that. Now I gotta be careful. If I castle, then this pawn is loose. So there's always some ideas with like e5 followed by queen takes h4. So maybe just get the rook off of that line of fire. Yeah, I suspect black is definitely for choice here. So black is going to grab one of the pawns. But now that the queen is over here, I don't have to be so concerned about that guy, so I'm just going to go ahead and castle. Yeah, and say, okay, you can take the pawn. Knight takes here, b5, followed by take here, perhaps, something like that. Originally was looking at this kind of idea. After queen here, there's always this threat. Here. Might actually just turn out to be very similar. Maybe that's a better way of doing it. Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that move. Because now if I take, they take here, and eyeing that square. So I wouldn't have the opportunity to play rook b5. But what if I play rook b5 right now? Maybe just queen takes a2? This was my idea to maybe play e4, and I realize that they're probably going to play d4, but at least that would block in the bishop. But I am down a pawn here. Well, I say that, but now I can take on b7. Yeah, maybe I just take the pawn. So maybe I've gotten closer to equality here. I don't know. It's still optimistic. Bishop here, just to hold on to that pawn, or do we care? Now if they go here, play bishop d3 to hold on to this pawn, and yeah, I've got a giant pawn myself on d3. I failed to consider, though, that after d4, bishop is attacking a2. Oversight on my part. Okay, now that one is a little surprising to me. I thought the other way would have been better. So I could maybe try to spice it up. Sack in the exchange. That might be worthwhile, actually. Of course, they don't have to oblige. Okay, let's make the offer. Hey, nerdy Asian guy. Good to see you again. Okay, well, my opponent, I don't believe is playing the best moves, but then, I mean, who knows? down material, but black's pawns are pretty ugly. And I have the two bishops. So who knows? Maybe I've got enough compensation here. Okay, just get out of that pin. So now I'm attacking g6, and I've also got ideas to win the exchange back. Okay, I just want to grab this guy, I guess. Maybe I can let them though. Just play queen e4. Takes. Maybe bishop here is the better move though. Looking at that, and then I could park my bishop on b3. That's very interesting. Don't know if it's my best interest to move my bishop off that nice diagonal though. Okay. I mean, I don't have mate coming because this bishop is always a very powerful piece. Defensive piece. Now, problem with queen takes a2 now is I think I've got bishop c4. And I'm taking on e6. Okay, so what did I miss? After here, I don't see the move. I think this is okay. I think this might be turning in my favor. I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic here, but with these two diagonals, king is going to be well, air conditioned. Let's put it that way. It'll be out in the open. Now, again, I don't have to take right away. But I guess no real reason not to. Is there any advantage to taking on g6 first? Yeah, let's do it this way. think I could try like a bishop e3 with taking here, but if I go bishop e3, I suspect they'll have to play e4 at some point just to be able to bring the queen back. Okay, so draw him out, but I don't think that's... Well, I suppose I would have bishop c5 there. Of course, maybe if I go here, thinking of a rook sack. Okay, well, let's not overcomplicate it. Now I was wondering if I could play queen e4. The best way? I'm allowing this move, though. Rather imprecise on my part. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe there's some benefits to exchanging the rooks, because my rook is not really active, and back rank's feeling a little drafty for black. Who do I think has the advantage here, asks Nerdy Asian Guy. Good question. Certainly optically, I feel like I have some chances, but optics can be deceiving. I really don't like where I've placed my light squared bishop, though. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have brought it back to b3 when I did. Maybe because I don't have the threat of mate on h7 now. Maybe I could just get out of the way here. So that I can always take and it's not check. Now, how do I get my rook involved? Rook's a bit of a problem. All right, what's what happens here? Okay. If I calculated right, I don't think that can take the bishop on b6. It might be useful for me to play queen g6 soon. Okay, they want to play queen f4, I suspect. So we don't want to allow that. Love to be able to play rook d1. Okay, let's go rook a1, attack the pawn. I was also concerned about rook b4, so now I've always got to contest with possible e4 checks. Okay, well now I don't have to. Fortunately, the rook covers that square. Maybe I can swing the rook over here to help. immediate threat is to take there. So I suspect rook d6 is coming. And what was I going to do on that move? I think here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here now. Yeah, that was the move I was concerned about. Now, can I take that pawn? Problem is, I think they could just take on h5. It's really unfortunate that I got down to such a low time. I think I should be able to at least hold a draw here, but who knows? Yeah, I don't know what the position was that took up majority of my time. Now, I wonder if that was a mistake by my opponent. How are they getting out of this? Is rook d7 the only move? E3 is a move. Yeah, E3 is definitely a move. Okay. Well, now I definitely have at least a draw, because I'll be up 2 pawns down the exchange, but I'm looking at looking for more, obviously, now that the king is wide open. Ah, that was a mistake. Yeah, that was a mistake. That's a risky decision. Am I going to be able to get out of the checks? That's the big question. Whose king is safer? I'm going to make sure I don't blunder my queen. All right, so if I go king c6, is that the last of the checks? My pieces are just safe enough. Pretty nasty threat there. Actually, this doesn't really do anything, does it? Okay, maybe I can check the king around and I should probably relax here, out of camera view. Okay, wow, I was not expecting that. So let's go with this one. I think king h8. Okay. I think I'll have queen f6. I'm actually making progress. Yeah, I think I am. Oh, no, I don't have mate yet. Well, given the time situation, I'll just take the perpetual. I'm sure I had something there. Maybe not. Let's have a look here. So after my opponent took on g2 +3, so I played that move. And then that move gave it all away. Okay, so what should I have done instead? Well, it wants to go bishop e6, but we just get the same position. Oh, it wants to go to g6. Okay. Yeah, after which he's forced to take on g6. I'm threatening mate. Yeah, this is a pretty easy win now. But I guess even here it was drawish. So instead of rook takes, queen takes seems to have held, pardon me. Because that's the thing. What do I have after? I don't have anything. I don't have enough. So let's go back. I think my c4 was probably the wrong move here. No, even here it was drawn. Okay. Even just a simple move like this holds. So in this position, the right move is queen f8. That is not an easy move to consider with seconds on the clock. The idea is that the queen is undefended and there aren't any checks because queen c5 I take. So after here, here, rook f7 is not possible because I take it. This is a win, yep. A little bit of work left to do, but yeah, this is a win. So I wonder, this is the beauty of chess. There's so many resources. Even here, there was a resource. Yeah, in the game I was expecting this check. And I don't want to play king e. Oh, I mean, I want to play king e1, but that allows rook takes, and there's protection. So I think during the game I was going to go king, check, and now why can't I go king here? Oh, it looks like it'll be similar to the game because of this move. Which is interesting that queen f8 doesn't work in this context. So why does queen f8 not work? Ah, the difference is with the king here on a light square, there's queen a6 check. So yeah, it was definitely a fun game. Interesting imbalances. This is very complicated too. I'm sure there were chances for both sides. I mean, I'm looking at the engine eval really quickly as I go back one move at a time, and it's hovering around equals, except for here. I kind of brain farted. Queen f7. I think my analysis, I was looking at this move. But what happens if they just go like this? Is g4 too loosening? Wants to do king here. And the idea is that you can't take here because of check, and you're going to get mated. King goes up, queen here is mate. But even here, queen f5, the evaluation is only 0.4, so curious if there was other spots in the game that I wasn't so sure about my bishop to b6 here. So let's go back really quickly. I have not read Dvoretsky's endgame manual, no. I don't think I'm willing to put in the time for that right now. I was expecting this. I thought this was, but I guess, okay, for some reason I didn't think of rook takes a7, but that makes sense. felt after this that my opponent basically allowed me back in the game here. Interesting. Engine didn't like queen e2. I preferred queen c1. That's not very natural to me because the natural inclination is try to gang up on this diagonal. All right, so I did play the engine recommended move, and it's +2 right now. Engine just says, don't play bishop c4, which is what I did, but rather just take. Okay, so I mean, this is the move that they want to play. That's recommended. But what happens on like a5? A5. Is there a mate here that I'm just... Oh, the bishop's coming. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, so what if they stop that? Let's say... Oh, queen here. Yeah, okay, let's maybe queen here. I know it allows bishop here. Again, I can't... Okay, you gotta stay on here. So queen d6, I guess, is the only move. Bishop e3. Yeah, this is pretty crushing. So engine just wants to give back material. And maybe this is why I didn't go into this, because I don't know, I felt that maybe black was okay here. What opening was this? It actually turned out to be a London system. But unfortunately, I do have to run. I have an appointment coming up in 20 minutes. So anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in. And I will put this video up on my YouTube channel. And I also put last week's as well. I kind of forgot to do that. And I think I even have one from December that I hadn't put into public view. So I'll clean that up so that come next stream, the YouTube channel will be up to date. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you have a good Saturday, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.